Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and welcome back to Managing the Score Manager. Today we're taking a look at some of the improvements made to the instrument list in Finale version 27. So let's go ahead and look at our Score Manager. And what I'm talking about is when you go into this Add Instrument here, we have all of these lists of instruments. And what Finale did for version 27 is go through all of these instruments and sort of clean them up, correct a lot of mistakes. I noticed particularly in the percussion sections here, there was a lot of changed spellings for some of the ethnic instruments. I guess they kind of did some research and figured out what the actual spellings were, stuff like that. They removed a lot of duplicates. They also cleaned up some of the transpositions and, what clef they're using. There was just a bunch of errors that they kind of cleaned up. Now, I haven't checked every single instrument. There's hundreds of them, so I have spot checked few of them, and they do appear to be better. So I will take them at their word that they cleaned up everything. But as far as additions are concerned, there's not a ton to report about this, so I'll kind of go through these kind of briefly. So in the keyboard section, they did actually add a calliope, and when you add the calliope, you actually get a pipe organ flutes sound. Now, of course, you're not going to get sample sounds for every single one of these instruments. I mean, there are hundreds of them, and I'm sure that, somebody has never sampled an ancient taragato instrument, for example. So, and also if you had samples for all of these instruments, I mean, it would just take up like terabytes of data. It just wouldn't be practical to include all of that. So there is a core set of instruments in the Garriton instruments for Finale, and what they will do is when you call up an instrument, they will call up a sound that's relatively close, right? So if I pull up in the woodwind section here, let's add a swona. I don't know what that is. And you'll see that it calls up an oboe solo. So to me, I'm assuming that the swona sound is somewhat similar to an oboe. That's why they've called on the oboe solo. Now, again, I can't guarantee that this is going to be 100% accurate. There's no way for me to research all of this. It would just take me weeks to do this. And presumably Finale has done that work. So I guess we can believe that a lot of that is now much more improved. So that's all there was in the keyboard section that I noticed, the added calliope. The voices section is exactly the same. In the woodwinds category, there was definitely some rearrangements. There was some duplicates deleted, but other than that, there was no additions made. The brass category is exactly identical to version 26. In the strings, I noticed that there's an instrument called psaltery. This was moved from the plucked strings category. I guess that was just a correction. In the plucked strings, there is now the Aeolian harp, which was moved from the percussion section, which I guess makes a lot more sense. And there's also two new instruments in here, and maybe they were moved from somewhere else. I just didn't notice. One called the Danu and another called the Gopashand. Let's see if I can find that. There it is, the Gopashand. Again, I don't know what these instruments are. They might have been moved from somewhere else. I don't think they're additions, but that's new in this particular category. The tab category was exactly the same. And the pitched percussion, drums, and percussion sections I covered in a dedicated video recently in video 3-6E. There were a lot of changes in these three categories, and it's worth checking out that video to see what's going on, particularly with the drum and percussion layouts. There's a lot of changes there, so do check out that video. Other than that, in the pitched percussion section, they did add the hand chimes instrument. There it is, hand chimes. And they also added music box. So those are two new instruments added to this list here. And in the drums, they added, I think all the way at the bottom, the tabor instrument. So again, those are just the things that I've noticed. So, not a whole lot to report, but they did do some corrections in these lists, and it seems to be improved. The other thing that they did, apparently, was they kind of fixed when you choose an instrument which sound that it chooses. Evidently, there were some mistakes with choosing some of these lesser-known instruments that it would just choose a completely wrong instrument, and you'd have to go back into the sounds over here and fix it here. I didn't check every single one of these instruments, but I did some spot checking. I checked about a dozen or so, and I did notice, of what I checked, I did notice that one thing, the dulcimer which I think is in the plucked strings section, does actually load the dulcimer sound from the Garriton instruments for Finale. Before, in version 26, you would add the dulcimer and it would actually switch the device to the other one, the Smart Music soft synth device. There was a dulcimer sound over there too, but there was no reason to. There is a dulcimer in the Garriton instruments for Finale, so that was obviously fixed. They made it call up the correct sound. So that was the one thing I noticed out of about a dozen or so that I checked. So I would extrapolate out that, you know, maybe 1 in 15 and 1 in 20 or so instruments have been improved on that front. And then the only other thing that they did was they added 3 sounds to the Garriton instruments for Finale. They added the bell tree sound, they added the, and I'll pull it up here, you can see that it adds now a new bell tree sound. They added the flexitone and they added the clapper sound. That's all they added to the Garriton instruments for Finale. So again, not a whole lot to report in terms of added patches themselves. And that's it, really. I mean, that's all there really is to report on the Score Manager. It did seem like they did some work to clean this stuff up, and it is noticeable, particularly in the percussion. So go check out that other video because I talk about that a little bit more in depth there. But even some of the other categories are nicely improved as well. So there you go. All right, so that's all there is to it. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you soon on the next video.